Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning is continuing Canto 10, Chapter 67, and the texts today are 11 and 12. So text 11 we'll chant together. Dusta Sakha Miriga Sakham Aruta Kampayan Druman Chakre Kilkila Shabdam Atmanam Sampradarshayan Dushta Shakam Riga Shakam Anu Aruda Kampayan Druman Chakre Kilkila Shabdam Atmanam Sampradashayan Dushta Shakam Riga Shakam Aruda Kampayan Druman Chakre Kilkila Shabdam Atmanam Sampradashayan. Please chant. Dushta Sakam Riga Shakam Aruda Kampayan Druman Chakre Kilkila Shabdam Atmanam Sampradashayan. Dushta Sakam Riga Sakam Aruda Kampayan Druman Chakre Kilkila Shabdam Atmanam Sampradashayan. Dushta Sakam Riga Sakam Aruda Kampayan Druman Chakre Kilkila Shabdam Atmanam Sampradashayan. The word for word. Dushta, mischievous. Sakamriga, the ape, the animal who lives on branches. Sakam, a branch. Aruda, having climbed. Kampayan, shaking. Druman, trees. Chakre, he made. Kila kila, shabdam, the sound kila kila. Atmanam, himself. Sampradashayan, showing. And the translation for text 11 is as follows. The mischievous ape climbed a tree branch and then revealed his presence by shaking the trees and making the sound kila kila. And the purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The word Sakamriga indicates that the ape Dravida, like ordinary apes, was naturally inclined to climb trees. Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, this gorilla by the name Vivida could climb up on the trees and jump from one branch to another. Sometimes he would jerk the branches, creating a particular type of sound, kila kila, so that Lord Balaram was greatly distracted from the pleasing atmosphere, close quote. And text 12. Tasya tasyam kapir viksha tarunyo jati kapulam hasya priya vija hasur baladeva parigraha. And the translation for text 12. When Lord Baladev's consorts saw the ape's impudence, they began to laugh. They were, after all, young girls who were fond of joking and prone to silliness. The purport for that verse. Omegyana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tatsa Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evachat Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Ramapadaswami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in this text 11, there's a commentary by Srila Jiva Goswami, which is the following, and this is quoting Srila Jiva Goswami for text 11. Although he climbed one branch, he made many trees shake because of the dense growth. He made an indistinct sound, kila kila. He showed off his huge size, pra, and his boldness, sam. Close quote. So that's the commentary for text 11 by Srila Jiva Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada, in writing in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he draws attention to this ability of Dvivida by saying, and this is Srila Prabhupada saying, quote, he could climb up into the trees and jump from one branch to another, close quote. And Srila Prabhupada continues, so this is pointing to Dravida's particular ability and also the kind of behavior he had. So this is Srila Prabhupada continuing. Sometimes he would jerk the branches, creating a particular type of sound, kila kila, so that Lord Balaram was greatly distracted from the pleasing atmosphere. So you can see where the purport has come from. It's from Srila Prabhupada's writings. So we can conclude, and this is another one of our acharyas commenting, Srila Sanatana Goswami, he says that this Dvivida gorilla, he made sounds like a monkey, and he revealed himself by stretching his limbs and by coming close. So another little detail comes there. So it's not only that he was up on the tree branches, which was his natural ability, and that he was jerking those tree branches, but also he was stretching his limbs and coming very close to Lord Baladev and the gopis. So if we consider for a moment the limb of a gorilla is actually 9 feet if you actually take like the limbs and you stretch them out, or a gorilla stretches them out. And so naturally, if there's such a long arm, it's naturally going to attract the attention of someone. You see a black-fingered, super long limb reaching out. And to come close, it's another fact that you have to take into account, because there's an imposing height of this black-furred creature coming close. And that is that generally, like, gorillas are considered to be between 4 and 5 feet high. So maybe not as tall as a human being, but a short human being. But the weight is the significance of that mass coming close, because the weight is something between 200 and 595 pounds. So it's quite a mass coming into a scene. You know, when a big object moves into some space, so that was Davida Gorilla. Certainly he's going to draw the attention of the personalities present there. So, and also if you consider that you're hearing this, that he's moving between tree branches, so this is a natural kind of environment for a creature such as the gorilla, because they're known to inhabit very dense forests, or sometimes mountainous areas. And it's very interesting because in this particular case, there was the dense forest and it was a mountain. So he had come up to the spot of Lord Balaram and the set of gopis, which included Revati, so one of Lord Baladev's consorts, due to the fact that this is Davida Gorilla, he had heard this very sweet musical sound coming from the Revataka mountain, and hence he followed the sound and came to that spot. So that's how he came to enter this mountainous region. And Srila Prabhupada describes the scene that Davida Gorilla witnessed. So this is what Davida Gorilla is seeing. There he saw Lord Balaram in the midst of many beautiful young girls enjoying their company while singing and dancing. Davida became captivated by the beauty of Lord Balaram's body, Srila Prabhupada writing something of the internal or the experience of Davida Gorilla, whose every feature was very beautiful, decorated as it was with a garland of lotus flowers. Similarly, all the young girls present, dressed and garlanded with flowers, exhibited much beauty. Lord Balaram seemed fully intoxicated from drinking the Varuni beverage, and his eyes appeared to be rolling in a drunken state. Lord Balaram appeared just like the king of elephants in the midst of many she-elephants. So that's what Davida Gorilla is witnessing. So Srila Prabhupada's writing in Krishna book of this particular scene. And so it's not lost on him the beauty of Lord Balaram and the gopis. So in what we have to take into account is the mindset of Davida Gorilla. Because his particular mindset had to do with the fact that he wanted to avenge the death of his friend Naraka. And because of that desire to retaliate against the death of his friend Naraka, he had ravaged the land. He had set fire that burnt the cities. the villages, the mines, the cowherd dwellings. So highly destructive behavior. We get that from earlier on in this particular chapter. And his mindset was one of retaliation, such that with force he intended to destroy Lord Krishna's kingdom, due to Krishna having killed his friend Naraka. So that's how he was going to retaliate. So the killer of his friend, therefore his kingdom, the kingdom that belonged to Lord Krishna, should be destroyed. Now Naraka, or Bhamasura as he was also known, we can look at some of his behavior and who this personality was. And it starts to make sense, the friendship between Bhamasura or Naraka and Dvivida. Bhamasura had stolen the earrings that belonged to Indra's mother, along with Varuna's umbrella and the demigod's playground at the peak of Mandara Mountain. So this was what the activities of Bhamasura or Naraka. And so here's how it all transpired. Lord Krishna, he set off with Satyabhama riding on Garuda to Pragyotisha Pura, and this particular city was surrounded on all sides by fortifications. So this was the place where Narakasura or Bhamasura resided. And these fortifications consisted of hills, unmanned weapons, water, fire, and wind, and by obstructions of Murapasa wire. So it was a heavily fortified city. With the sound of his conch shell, Lord Krishna had shattered the magic seals of the fortress, along with the hearts of the defenders of that fortress. And with his heavy club, he had demolished the surrounding earthen ramparts. So Krishna came in and, was destroying some of the fortifications immediately. And Bhamasura, he had ordered Mura, a demon who'd been residing, a five-headed demon that had been residing in one of the fortifications, which was the water fortification. He'd been residing in that moat. And there was a huge battle between Garuda and Mura, and Krishna had actually severed the 5 heads of the Mura demon. And now Bhamasura had ordered Mura's sons to the battlefield with Lord Krishna. So the fierce warriors, they furiously attacked Lord Krishna with swords, arrows, clubs, spears, lances, tridents. But, and this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord with unfailing prowess cut this mountain of weapons into tiny pieces with his arrows. So it didn't matter what the weapons were, Krishna was merely using arrows and severing the weapons. So the Lord severed, in addition, the heads, thighs, arms, and legs and armor of these opponents, led by Pitta, and sent them all to the abode of Yamaraj. Narakasura, who was the son of the earth, Bhumi, could not contain his fury when he saw the fate of his military leaders. Thus he went out of the citadel with elephants born from the milk ocean, who were exuding madder from their foreheads in excitement. So that's the description from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And a little bit further, seeing the army driven back, this is also the Srimad Bhagavatam, seeing the army driven back and tormented by Garuda, Bhama attacked him with his spear, which had once defeated Lord Indra's thunderbolt. But though struck by the mighty weapon, Garuda was not shaken. Indeed, he was like an elephant hit with a flower garland. So imagine this hugely powerful weapon that Bhamasura has, that it actually harmed Lord Indra's thunderbolts. It had no effect on Garuda. I mean, he was struck with it, and for him it was like a flower garland. It did nothing. Garuda was not shaken. Indeed, he was like an elephant hit with a flower garland, is the description. So now Bhamasura, he was frustrated in all his attempts, that he took up his trident to try and kill Lord Krishna. But even before he could release it, the Lord cut off his head with his razor-sharp chakra as the demon sat atop his elephant. So the second weapon Bhamasura was going to take, even before he could use his trident, Krishna severed his head while he was sitting on top of his elephant. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he mentions that at this moment when Bhamasura raised his invincible trident, Satyabhama, who was sitting on Garuda with Lord Krishna had taken her to this battle, she said to Krishna, "Kill him right away." And Krishna did so. And there was a significance, of course, because Bhumi is an expansion of Satyabhama, so it actually sort of required her permission to kill Bhamasura, because he was the son of goddess Bhumi. So it required Satyabhama's permission. And by Krishna taking her with him, she was right there at the moment when he had taken up his second weapon. So she said, "Kill him right away." And Krishna did so. Now, Srila Prabhupada writes that when Dvivida Gorilla heard the same story that I've just narrated from the Srimad Bhagavatam of his friend Bhamasura being killed by Lord Krishna, he planned immediately to create mischief throughout the country in order to avenge the death of Bhamasura. So he heard the same narration. And so this is how he proceeded to act. Sometimes he would uproot a big mountain and tear it to pieces. So we just heard his friend Bhamasura, he'd actually severed the top of a mountain that used to be the place where the demigods used to use as their playground. And here, what is the entertainment for Dvivida Gorilla, or his particular first act of retaliation? It's actually to uproot a big mountain and smash it to pieces. So incredible strength. And similar behavior to his friend Bhamasura. Now, Lord Krishna describes the activities of a demoniac, of somebody with a demoniac mindset. And this is coming from Bhagavad Gita. This is what Krishna says of those with a demoniac mindset. The demoniac, who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. So it's very much part of that kind of mindset and mentality, and is exemplified here by Dvivida Gorilla, and also his friend Narakasura, who had engaged in stealing very personal items from the demigods. So the lack of intelligence that Lord Krishna is saying is part of this mindset of those with the kind of demoniac mentality. Srila Prabhupada attributes it to having no concept of God, which is very interesting, because the whole focus, the way the intelligence is being used, is trying to enjoy this world to the utmost. So therefore God's not in the picture. And Srila Prabhupada also attributes this lack of intelligence with those who have this demoniac mindset, is they're always engaging in inventing something to further their enjoyment in this world. So the result, Srila Prabhupada spells out, is that persons become more and more cruel towards one another and cruel to other human beings. So that's a result of having that mindset where there's no concept of God, and then just proceeding to try and enjoy the world to the utmost, and even creating things that supposedly increase enjoyment. And what it leads to is like very cruel behavior to others. So that's a demoniac mindset. So interestingly, those that live such a materialistic life, they are in fact being, you could say, assailed. They're under attack themselves, which is very interesting because one may not realize it, but they're under attack by 6 aggressors. And those that are on that road of material life, there's 6 aggressors that they're being attacked by. And this is these aggressors have come together to attack that person carrying that kind of demoniac mentality, mindset, that, not having any concept of God, just wanting to enjoy the material world to the utmost. But internally, this is where their aggressors are. They're actually under attack by these 6 aggressors: lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy. And that is put this way: Kaman Prakata Patapati Vyatikara, which is from Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in Manasa Shiksha, where he describes this particular fact. So, in fact, somebody with no concept of God is a victim of these thieves. They're actually thieves, internal thieves. They're robbing one of happiness. So Lord Krishna describes it this way in Bhagavad Gita 262. Something of that internal world of somebody with a demoniac mindset. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. So this is something of how these thieves gain such a strong foothold internally with somebody with this mindset of having pushing God out of the picture and just proceeding to try and enjoy the material world to the utmost. And that particular statement of Lord Krishna's from Bhagavad Gita 262, Jyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangas Teshu Pajayate Sangam Sanjayate Karnaha Karnat Krodo Vijayate. So you could say that certainly the senses of Dvivida gorilla, they were not being engaged in the service of the Lord, certainly not. And when the senses are not being engaged in the service of the Lord, they require some engagement. And Srila Prabhupada puts it this way: the senses, will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. Hence, we hear about this impudent behavior of Dvivida gorilla. I mean, he comes upon a very sacred, beautiful scene, and with this beautiful singing. And what does he do? He stretches his long arm, so extremely long arms that gorillas have. He puts his whole body in front of the gopis, and he also disturbs the whole atmosphere with his movement through the branches, because he's shaking the trees. It's not merely that he's, moving quietly from branch to branch. He's shaking the branches. So he's causing disturbance. And the commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states, this is for text 12, by nature, so the Sanskrit for that was Jati Svabhavena, the young ladies accompanying Balaram were not very serious. And the word for that was Kapulaha. Being fond of joking, they laughed loudly at the monkey's impudence. So that's the commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So one can contrast the gopis' position with the materialistic position of Dvivida gorilla. And this is Lord Krishna in text 261 Bhagavad Gita. He describes the opposite of what I've just described, of the mindset of somebody who's engaged in materialistic life. such as the Vivida gorilla. Here's the opposite. Krishna says, one who restrains his or her senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his or her consciousness upon me is known as a man or woman of steady intelligence. So the gopis, they're exemplifying this highest concept of yogic perfection. That is, they're practicing exactly what Krishna has said here, this Krishna consciousness, this restraint of the senses. They're keeping them under full control, and because they're serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one can take into account that when they're laughing, it's not that they're laughing out of fear of this gorilla, because they're Lord Balaram's consorts. There's no fear. And they're laughing loudly and conspicuously. And the words, the Sanskrit there was vijaha suhu. And the reason for this is because they're fond of laughing. It's very natural to them because they're very young. And Srila Sanatana Goswami, he notes that this fondness for laughing is due to the fickleness of that is part of having a very youthful nature. So the mind tends to move a little bit this way and that way when somebody's extremely young. And so hence it's expressed externally through this happy laughter. Now, the fact is that actually they're exemplifying controlling their senses. And the reason one knows this is because the senses can be only completely controlled by the strength of devotional service and or service to Krishna, and in their case, they were serving Lord Balaram. So there's Srila Prabhupada commenting exactly this statement that the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna, and the Sanskrit for that is Mat Bhakti Prabhavena Shvarendriya Vijay Puvika Svatma Drishti Sulabeti Bhavaha. And that actually is a statement made by Srila Baladev Vijayabu's son. So in addition, the gopis also exemplify the purity that's achieved by having their consciousness fixed upon the Supreme Lord. So for them, those 6 internal thieves are not operating. And the reason for this, it's like there's the devotion is like a blazing fire that's burning everything within a room. So the room could be the heart, and everything's, all those impurities are being burnt in the heart through that that fire of devotion. And another way that sometimes the comparison is made is Lord Vishnu is situated in the heart of the yogi, and he burns up personally all the impurities. So this particular scenario, there's much earlier on, we'd read in the 65th chapter a description of this beautiful scene of Lord Balaram and the gopis, and it said that the Gandharvas were actually singing, just seeing this beautiful scene. And the description was, Lord Balaram enjoyed with the brilliant circle of young women. He appeared just like Indra's elephant, the lordly Ayurvata enjoying the company of she-elephants. So, and that's the scene that Vivida Gorilla, in his very materialistic, retaliatory mindset, had come to disturb. So I'm pausing there if there's anything to expand the discussion.
You were making this last point of the position of the gopis as, the top most perfected beings, um, exemplify, perfection, the perfect control. And of course, externally, by the narration appears that even Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, in the purport, is explained that they're as youthful and they're prone to silliness and that type of thing. The nature of youthfulness is not necessarily control, it's almost silly and immature and sort of light-hearted and laughing at anything, even something that is so gross and threatening as a gorilla being aggressive, you know, gigantic gorilla, King Kong type of gorilla there, and they, sort of acting silly and not necessarily depict the position of someone who is perfectly with control of the senses. The explanation of in the Bhagavad Gita of this equipoise of stita pragya, perfectly controlled sage, is that you don't become elated with something positive or happy, or you don't become distressed by some difficult situation. So, so this doesn't appear to be the situation with the associates of Krishnas in Vrindavan, the Brijavasis, especially the gopis. Now, of course, we know that when we talk about this happiness and distress and equipoise on those, we're talking in the material plane. We're not talking in the spiritual plane. So, although externally appear like that, you mentioned also their laughing and their behavior is perfectly transcendental because it's all for Krishna's pleasure. There's not a tinge of conditioning there. So I was just going to.
Thank you for processing that, because indeed it's externally could appear questionable, but the main point was that the internal is completely fixed. So it means that actually the senses are completely controlled from the point of view that the devotional fire is raging. They're completely fixed in their devotion to Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. We're hearing in this particular case to Lord Balaram. So therefore, they're not at the mercy of their senses, because when one thinks of somebody being a little silly, a young person, the senses are a bit out of control. But here, just by virtue of the fact that one understands that they're exemplifying yogic perfection, it means that actually the senses are completely controlled. It's just that in their youthfulness, it's natural to like to laugh. So they laugh. It's sort of just a reflection of I guess, the external age and mentality. But the internal is fixed in devotion. The heart is fixed in devotion. So, yeah, it's very interesting just noting the external and thinking about where the internal is. It's just like with the Veda gorilla, his external mirrored the internal. There's that mindset of retaliation. So hence you've seen all the destruction he's creating and the disturbance he's creating. But then from a devotional perspective, you actually understand he's actually under attack. And that was the point being made, that he is actually under the attack of lust, which very shortly we're going to hear how it manifests, where he actually starts pulling the garments of the goat as he goes that far. And there was mentioned too in earlier sections that part of his terrible behavior, which gives some understanding of him himself being at the mercy of these aggressors, these thieves that are actually stealing his happiness, is that he engaged in raping women of aristocratic families. So it's that internal disturbance that's there actually in Davida Gorilla. And in the case of the gopis, there's no internal disturbance. So externally, there's a lot of laughing. So you might think silly, not so fixed, but no, there's no disturbance. It's perfectly in a state of perfect peacefulness internally, as opposed to Davida Gorilla, who's actually under internal attack. So that was the point being raised. Well, thank you so very much for your kind attention. Today we have a class that's ending as though we're ending not having sung the Dhammadarasika prayers, but it makes everybody's day easier. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.